All right, folks. I guess you recognize my face since you already see the video, the previous video. I have a gentleman beside me, which his name is Bob, and I will let this stuff introduce himself and what his credentials are to explain some of the stuff I'm doing. So I'm just going to let the man take over from there, and then when he's finished his credential, and we'll go on with a demonstration, and after that we'll do the explanation of what's happening. So Bob, is all yours.
Good morning. My name is Bob Klein. Many long years ago, I was trained as a mathematician at the University of Waterloo. I specialized actually in relativity and became very comfortable with the theory to the extent of in my fourth year I took a 900 level course with PhD students under Hanno Rund, and in the process gained a couple of insights. The key insight that I came up with was that to actually integrate particle physics into relativity, it was going to have to be done by way of the metric itself. It was not going to be done through the geometry. And this has guided my own thinking and research ever since. At the time, I also dismissed quantum theory as a theoretical basis for approaching the whole problem of fundamental physics. And the reason for that is that quantum theory and the theories that are being used today are, I best describe as empirically driven, but they are very much Ptolemaic theories laid on an array of facts, not foundational. Okay, and that was why Einstein ultimately himself dismissed quantum theory, because he knew whatever you ended up with, the whole theory was truly Ptolemaic. Every time you found some new evidence, you gave another adjustment to the blanket. Okay, but you're not saying anything about the underlying reality. Okay, my approach, of course, always was to go out, try to find out how to get to the foundational reality of our universe, and that I believe I have achieved. Okay, and and about 3 or 4 years ago, I published actually a paper which introduced a complete expansion of the whole foundations of mathematics, and introduced the third and the fourth order Pythagorean. I've also written a paper that introduced something called cloud cosmology, which describes the foundational particles that make the foundational particle of the universe, the foundational first step of the universe, and how that can be described mathematically. So I do have those tools. That has led to the thought experiment that has allowed me to assemble a thought experiment, a thought model of the electron itself, the electron, and what I will call the electron pair, which is very critical here. And that leads pretty directly to the self-assembly of the neutrons and the rest of our particle universe. What is critical in all of this is that the particles being produced are actually naturally neutral. I'll use the phrase neutral. They're not quite perfectly neutral, but they're neutral compared to the dealing with the electron, which is powerfully a negative, the proton, which we're used to seeing a powerful positive charge. And when you have a cloud of electrons, they naturally push each other apart. Whereas electron pairing, and which by the way has been hypothesized for superconductance as the Cooper pair, it's the natural media for working with electrons. So my fundamental conjecture is that when we are dealing with electricity, we are dealing with almost a fluid of these neutral pairs, which acts as the media for the electrons to operate and be shielded by.
Good. Yeah, that's good. I mean, what I'm trying to get is so other folks can understand what is going on beside, my little theory of what is going on and the test and all the result I got. And as you we are the summer. I was keeping you a note and almost every day, phoning you a couple of times and telling you what I was getting out of the result as I was walking toward what we have in the front of us. It was a long walk and a long summer. But now there's a lot of stuff I'm doing, and I'm getting a reaction which I didn't understand, especially the reading of the temperature of what was coming out. It was something. It was not quite normal for me to reach that low of a temperature. But what we're going to do, I think, I'm going to start doing a little example. I'm going to re-explain very shortly, since everybody knows about this. If you don't mind, I'm going to walk in front of the camera and go to the other side. And we have, again, we have a 218-volt battery. It's connected in series, so it makes 36 volt. Each battery have 1 amp, 1.1 amp hours. So you cannot multiply the amp. When you connect a DC battery in series, you only multiply the volts. So that's why I get 36 volt, 1 amp of heat of those batteries. I'm pushing it through. That's just a regular switch on off. I'm pushing it through to a 24 volt high-speed DC brush-fed motor, and it's hooked up to this little, we call it a pump now. I guess last night we figured out it's more like a pump than a generator, because we obviously not producing a whole. It shows like we're producing voltage, but it's more energy than volts. So we're going to run this little thing here, but before we go too far, I'm going to run it just to make sure we all understand back. I'm going to start testing the voltage of this. With a voltmeter, so we're going to be able to see. So I'm going to ask Bob to help me out. Can you hold that there, Bob? Right. And we'll turn that to volt. So right now I'm pushing up 129 volt, right, constant. So that's what we start with, and that's AC volts. Now I'm going to turn that to hertz. Now I'm putting 136.5.3 volts, 137, but not volt, hertz. So everybody sees that, perfect. So we go off that, we go off here. All right, Bob, thank you. Now, as you know, as you see, we have the hertz, we have the volts. We're just going to give you one little thing here so you can see. So we're producing actually producing heat. So we're actually producing energy. Now, that's a 40-watt bulb, burns a full light spectrum at full temperature. But Bob, you like to stick your finger between the two wires there? See if you feel anything between. There we go.
Small buzz.
Very small buzz. You know, and you can sit there for a day if you want to. You're not going to die.
Yeah.
Right?
And should intercept here that putting this light bulb just on these batteries by themselves would be very weak.
Oh yeah, because you can run any bulb with straight batteries and DC currents. That's you can run just about anything, any lightning system, especially halogen.
Yeah.
Right?
But it'll be very, very weak.
Yeah. We can do the most version if you want on that one.
No need.
Yeah. So it's the battery itself is have about 1/10 of the energy this thing's putting out on the heat parts. So now we know we got heat. That means we got some type of amperage. I don't know if we can call that amperage yet. So now what I'm going to do is, this system here is just a loop, and I got 1,000 watt high pressure sodium and a 150 watt high pressure sodium, which I'm not going to light up those bulbs. I'm using it as a tool, as an instrument to be able to see the flow of electrons if we can't see it. So let's see if we can see the flow of electrons. So we're going to rehook that up like in the first video. You have to be patient. There's a lot of connecting and disconnecting. There we go. And then we're going to create the loop. From this transformer to this little light bulb, from the other wire of the little light bulb to the big light bulb, and the big light bulb come back to the transformer, which is my step up.
How many volts are being put into out of the transformer?
Because I dropped down to 100 20 some volts, right? So I should be putting out roughly around, that one now it would go right back to where it was built for, about 65,000 volts.
65,000 volts, okay, across the
Because
gap.
this is a transformer for ozonator, and you can really not build any ozone less than 50,000 volts.
Okay.
And I believe that would be a VA volt. So now I'm going to, since everything is nice and tight, you don't see much, but it's blue. As you can tell, we can turn it up and see the blue. It disappears very slowly, and it goes white again, and it goes back on. Now the electrons, they're not activated. It's just a straight flow of electrons. I'm going to use this bulb here to activate both of the bulb by creating a spark underneath, a gap, and you will see the reaction. What's happening in the big bulb? Now we got a flow. Now we activating the electron. Now the electron is activated. Now we have a ribbon going through this tube. We can see with not a problem seeing with our eyes. Our eyes capture speed of light. The camera doesn't, right? But we can see it visually, and that's what I brought Bob to verify that with me.
There's actually a channel of electrons flowing from this end down to this end, which is about almost 8-inch gap.
Yeah, this is 10-inch.
10-inch gap.
I get a 10-inch vacuum tube here, and what I'm getting is a perfect stream of electron into this tube.
Yeah.
And the color is blue for one reason. When I do that, for some reason,
I would call it almost mauve rather than blue.
Yeah, it's kind of purplish blue, I guess.
It's sliding toward the end of the spectrum.
So I'm just going to go with amperage here, and Bob is going to be a hard one to see it for you guys, but I'm going to have Bob to witness that, and I'm going to pick up the radiation, because this is a closed loop Geiger counter. We have a circuit, and it does all the calculation and it brings everything up to an amp. So we're going to put that around the field. How many amp? Bob is upside down, but how many amp? 27, 28?
27 point, is it 27?
25, 26.
Yeah, that's right.
It bounces between 27 and 26 amp.
Yeah.
Amps. We're talking about amps here, right? Now another thing is happening with that is we're only starting with a certain amount of volts in the beginning. Now that's going to be interesting for people to see it. Can you put that on the voltage again?
Okay.
Now my voltage is going up. I'm gaining volt. I'm 185 volt, 200 volts, but I'm only starting with 120 some volt, 130 volts. So how come my voltage is feedback into that loop pump there, and it's higher when I'm putting in on voltage already.
What is the voltage now?
184, 192.
184.
Yeah.
Okay, it's climbing.
It's climbing. So it bounces up and down because the arc is not steady, right? Now, but you can see the voltage. At 200, it bounced up to 200 volts. It's building up of energy. But I'm only putting, the actual thing is only putting 120 volts.
Yeah. So the contribution of this component is 120 volts.
Yeah.
And the system that we've activated, with no further input, is increasing its voltage.
Exactly. And when you look, those blue lights here, they're lighting up. They're just sitting on the top of the wire. And those are burnt out fluorescent tube I got. And the reason when I start creating power or energy, those lights start to glow up by itself, just sitting on the wire. And I'll show you why they glow. I'll click my other instrument. It's a very simple instrument. It's a laser thermometer or an infrared thermometer they call it. But as you can hear right now, it's crackling. That means he's reading temperature. I don't know if we can see that, but
And the reading is?
The reading is 400 Fahrenheit, 500 and some degree Fahrenheit. It's bouncing between 400 and 500 below zero on the temperature.
So it's giving a negative reading on temperature.
On temperature. Now
we don't.
I'm going to point that to Bob, and he's back to his normal temperature.
Yeah. the glass itself is normal temperature.
Oh yeah, you don't have anything. And soon I stop the reaction. Now the blue is just going straight. I have normal temperature of the room. And it's a straight temperature. Now the whole, yeah, we know the voltage now. Yeah. So the whole question is, we're definitely detecting radiation, but at the other side of the spectrum. So if we do that on the other side of the spectrum, we can recuperate that, because we already know we have a buildup of energy, and voltage was building up between into the loop.
No. What appears to be happening, I say I'm treating this as an electron pump, and that and what this part of it would be is a direct current motor. It acts as a modulator that creates a gate for electrons. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it appears to me that the electron is the supply, if you like, is building up in the system. Mm-hmm. Okay, which is, and with the back voltage and everything else, and of course, with a spark gap and driving it, and the high voltage coming off that end, it triggers the electron flow coming through the tubes.
Correct.
Okay, which is pretty nice from a couple of batteries.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, in
other words, it's completely implausible.
Exactly.
Otherwise,
if we're just reading the energy of the radiation on amp volume, so far it's 4,000 times what the battery puts out.
That's right. Way above and beyond. Okay. The interesting question which has arisen is that we're getting a negative reading from this device. We don't know whether to trust that or not, but it's telling us that probably heat's been absorbed rather than being produced. Okay, and it might not be. We don't have to take it that this is a valid reading, but it's certainly a different direction than expected.
But just to tell you, there's nothing wrong with this thing.
Yeah.
Actually, when you move from there at minus 500, you go to the table, it will give you the room ambience at the point. I've been testing so many things with that, and this thing is telling me everything I'm testing with the thermometer is bang on.
On the other hand, it's now testing something, and it's gone into a negative range, which the number may not be meaningless, but it's definitely outside the range of this device. That's what it confirms.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's also interesting, after energizing this tube, if you put it in a dark room, the tube itself keeps emitting. Okay.
Yeah.
And we tested it with two different types of glasses, so we don't think the glass is emitting light. We think the vacuum itself is emitting light. And I say the vacuum, as suggested in my theory, is full of electron pairs. Electron pairs penetrate glass, penetrate copper wire, penetrate stone for that matter, because logically, electron pair has a scaling that's at least 10 times smaller than that of a neutron, okay? And more likely 100 times smaller. So that you have a neutron here and a neutron over here. Many electron pairs can flow through because they're neutral, okay? It's like water. And don't forget that the original thinking of electricity was very much influenced by hydraulic concepts.
Exactly.
The idea that the media for electrons that we're working with are in fact a hydraulic fluid of electron pairs has never really...
Yeah, and we can prove that because we can create pressure in an electric wire.
But what's important, when we put this in a dark room, it will, after being energized like this, it will glow for about 9 hours.
9 hours. As you see, the tube right now is white. If you keep that in a dark room, the only thing you're going to see in a dark room when you close the door is the blue tube in the middle.
Yes.
And we did that last night because I wanted to make sure it sees that.
Yeah. So that's important because if and it needs to be completely proven, but it really tells me that if there's we're calling it dark matter, it's also Cooper pairs. So it's absorbing the light and it's re-radiating it slowly over time. Okay, absorbing energy, and dark matter is a photon sponge. It is a natural structure for absorbing photons and holding them. Okay, and it's and re-emitting. It was fully loaded, a fully loaded media. It makes sense that it would emit any surpluses. Mm-hmm. Okay, so in a way we've seen the effect of dark matter in a vacuum. Okay, the surprise is that so that we believe we know how now a method of actually detecting dark matter
and see it with bare eyes.
And don't forget, if we live in an ocean of electron pairs, that ocean probably encompasses the entirety of our solar system. Okay, I mean, and it's not a very compressible fluid. It's non-compressible per se. It is affected by gravity, and because obviously it's 90% of the mass of the universe to start with. Okay, but it gives you some sense of the scalability. It takes a lot of electron pairs to make up the equivalent mass of a neutron, which after all is 1,000 of those, or 600 of those electron pairs that have decayed down to a compact size, okay, to form a neutron. Okay, so
it's pretty, yeah. I mean, like, and the thing everybody always asks about what is in a magic box. Yeah. Well, it's very simple. I'm going to give you a closer look on that one. What is in this little plastic box, right? It's just an iron frame, really high iron. It's got lots of resonance in it, and that's probably why he's really capable of following or transmitting the oscillation. Double copper coil, right? That's one coil, cross over with the wire and do the other coil, and then split it in half, and then shove over this iron bar. There we go. And then this tiny little magnet, and that's what is giving us all this energy here, is how that little magnet is, like you were saying, you're splashing the electron field, you're whipping the electron field. Yep. It's most likely it's a split in half. One side is north, the other side is south, and it's spin in this iron, but with no contact, of course, because of the plastic, insulated, and it's spin with. When you start, it's got lots of resistance because the poling against each other, but when you start spinning at a high speed, the resistance goes away. And that's why I'm not using a whole lot to spin that to create all this energy, because more you spin, easier it is. Faster you spin, easier it is. So this is the big magic box. It's all very compact.
I mean, a more simple thing, or analogy that I should make, and it comes out of mathematics in a way. The Mathematica that we've relied on is very much a binary mathematics. In other words, it never has more than two axes, because that's what we could handle. The expansion of the mathematic theories that I've brought allows a third and a fourth axis and ultimately an nth axis. But instead of doing a mapping of a circle, which is what the sine and the cosine function does, you're doing a mapping of a spiral. So when you create a complex device with essentially more than two axes, okay, are working against each other, you actually are inducing a spiral function reaction, which is like a whip. In other words, there's going to be a pulse wave that will catch an electron and tip it over another curve. So assuming that this here is a normal alternating current motor, I've got a beautiful sine wave. I got this other wave which has got at least 4 axes in it, and it's whipping electrons over the gate. The wave acts as a gate, and it's throwing them over the gate. The only way to describe it. So this is creating a gate here that pushes electrons into the system, and the electrons, they're not coming down from the battery, by the way. This creates a potential for absorbing electrons. The electrons have to come from somewhere. They come out of the dark matter surrounding us, draws them out of the atmosphere, if you like, and this charges up our system.
And then you get locked into the loop.
You got locked into the loop here, and and you're now able to do brake horsepower, to produce brake horsepower in the process. So it's definitely a way of tapping the ambient potential of the world around us.
Oh, I mean, like, you know, I can recuperate electricity just from around the wire and create usable electricity and usable land.
And we're doing no more than was ever done when you put a water wheel into a river.
Exactly.
Okay.
More likely, and those if we would have a magnet with a water wheel, we would be at that stage.
So by no stretch of imagination is energy being created here. It is being accessed with this pump.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting into, and you have to understand, this pump was not built to do that. This is an AC motor, a discharge pump for a front loader washing machine. Yes. So it's nothing fancy here, and it was not designed for that.
Very nice piece of work, though.
Can you imagine if we put a little bit of time and rearrange this little pump there?
Oh yeah.
It would put out a massive amount of energy. At that point, I can almost say so. I could almost oscillate a full-size transformer to power a house, because I can produce enough energy in ambience amp to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, we're going. Obviously, we plan to go and also power a vehicle.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Because it's with this simple design, it's literally obvious.
Oh, I mean, like, it's a giving. I mean, like, you know, when you start pumping out that much energy to create an amp rating on a professional voltmeter, that's mean you're actually creating power. I mean, that those instruments, like the instrument I'm using, they're not your dollar store instrument. They're a very high-end instrument. Yeah. And I'm always trying to test if I get a reading. I'm going to go to another system of the house electrical to make sure my reading is right. And that way I have calibrated instrument. This one kind of throw me up a little bit. That thing does more than what the eyes mean.
Well, I haven't gone into the actual engineering of it and why we're actually getting the super negative readings.
Yeah.
I hate to think that they're real, but the only comment I'll make on it, what makes it so interesting, is that the dark matter, photons absorbed into the dark matter are going to take on the wavelength of direct of the electrons, which means there'll be very low temperature radiation, okay? Because of the wavelength. I mean, most of the radiation we're exposed to is coming off, whether it's a hydrogen atom or a sodium atom. It's big, huge scale. It's thousands of times bigger than the radiation that we're measuring here.
Correct.
Okay, and so any system that relies on radiation is going to pick up a low temperature reading. Okay, the fact that it gives numbers that are ridiculously low may only be an artifact of the machine, but the fact is the radiation should be a low temperature radiation.
Correct.
But it's really interesting, none of this radiation that's coming off here is caused by too much of this. I don't think it's not necessarily sure it's being caused by a decay from an atom. It's coming, the radiation that's coming out of this tube, there's no atoms in there for a decay. Okay?
It's just a vacuum tube.
So it's a vacuum tube. So the radiation is coming out of the dark matter, and it's going to already be, but it's still long enough combined wavelength, if you like, for us to see it. Okay?
Could it be possible when I activate that, when the electrons start to flow without being activated, just flow in the tube? Could it possibly we actually achieving the perfect vacuum in the tube?
No, because the tube is full of these electron pairs. Dark matter exists pervasively, and it readily penetrates all the physical world. The physical world we are involved with, the copper atoms, it's like a water around it. Okay, because I said this can be a copper atom here, and this can be a carbon atom over here. In the meantime, I got water in between called these dark matter. I mean, there's no way we can create a perfect vacuum. Okay. And I'm not so sure that a perfect vacuum even exists in deep space.
Yeah, that's what we're talking.
I'm very suspicious that it does not.
Yeah.
Because the physical world that we are observing when we look in the telescope is capable of passing through this ocean because it's porous. It's like if I put a pile of stone and throw it in the ocean, it sinks to the bottom, and hardly notices. Okay, and that's our position vis-a-vis dark matter. It's around us, but it represents a horrific amount of mass. I say literally 50 to 100 times the mass that we see.
So, in your own opinion, and what you have in front of you there, I mean, we see a lot of stuff on the YouTube, and I've been doing research for about 18 years on this stuff, on and off on the YouTube, and trying stuff I see and whatever, and I've been fascinated with magnet, what make a magnet live, you know, since I'm a kid. But what I have here, like, you know, what I came up as my research was going and testing stuff and getting zapped, you know, one time after another, I find out this electricity didn't hurt me. I mean, it slapped